to the Smile at the Chaos podcast presented by the Frida Cinema. I am your host, Anthony Drake,
And I'm the co-host, Blake Johnson.
and we'd like to welcome you guys to the first episode of our podcast that we have decided to take a part in. During this quarantine, we thought that there'd be some good content out there, so we thought we'd get it to you guys via the Frida Cinema, who's allowed us to post the podcast on their website. And, we're going to bring you guys a lot of Frida news as far as what's going to be playing at the Frida and any sort of new events that we have going on. We're going to be talking about those on the podcast. So I'm joined by Blake today. Blake, first of all, how's your quarantine going? And then maybe, talk a little bit about how you got involved with the Frida.
Yeah, man. It could be going better. There's only so much you can do when you're kind of cooped up in the house all day. But just been watching a lot of movies, catching up on some reading, all that good jazz. But yeah, so I've been involved. I've been a volunteer at the Frida for a little over a year now. And before that, the first film that I watched at the Frida was Spirited Away. Might have been 3 or 4 years ago, but yeah. So I've been a patron ever since then, and been loving it ever since. But what about you, man? How'd you get involved? I know you're a little more recent than I am.
Yeah, so I came in about November to the Frida. First found out about it when I saw Blue Velvet, I think about a year and a half ago or so. They're always replaying it every few months. And then I just kind of popped in and was like, oh, this is something that I could do with my time, meet a lot of like-minded people. So it's been a pretty good experience so far. I'm happy that we got the podcast up and going. It was something that Logan had talked about, who will actually be on the show a little bit later, talk about like the freedom and everything that's going on. But he was talking to us about, doing something before we went on this quarantine. So it's good that it's getting started. Yeah, there's not really much movie news besides, a few things like Dune released a few new pictures and all that stuff. But like, what have you been watching over quarantine?
Oh man, too many too many things. But there's been a handful of films that I've watched that have really blew my mind. Things that I've watched the first time, and so a couple of those that I'll be talking about today is this Iranian new wave film called Children of Heaven, and it's by Majidi. So for those who are aware of Abbas Kiarostami and the sort of Iranian new wave films that he's done, he's this director is another sort of director in that movement. But essentially, it's a very minimalistic film. It's very reminiscent of Italian neorealism, and essentially, it's just follows a young brother and sister. They're probably about 8 to 10 years old, pretty young, and the brother ends up losing the sister's shoes, and you pretty much follow them on their journey as the brother attempts to find his sister's shoes, and then they're kind of shoe swapping. So the film is set in like this really poor district in Tehran, and so you can kind of see how something trivial as like losing a pair of shoes can really have this economic effect on this family, this poor family. So it's very, very powerful. The performances are great between both actor and actress. The two children are great, and it's just a really good film at kind of showing the universality of humanness and how sort of interconnected we all are. So throughout the film, things will happen, an event will occur, and that event will the consequences of that event will happen later on in the film. So it just kind of reiterates the interconnectedness of everything that we do. Each action has an opposite reaction, kind of a thing.
Where did you watch it?
So I watched it. I actually rented it on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if you can stream it for free anywhere, but I know you can rent it for about $3 or $4 on Prime, and it's definitely worth the watch.
Okay, very cool, very cool. What year did it come out?
I believe it was 1997. Yeah, 1997.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so
so
that film is I highly recommend checking that one out if you haven't heard of it and want to get more into sort of world cinema, foreign cinema. That's a good one to go with.
yeah, and we'll be posting all of our recommendations on a letterbox page that we'll be creating for the show. So if you have any questions or like want to check out any of the films that either of us or guests come on and recommend, you can check out our letterbox, which, like I
We
said,
should,
will be up
yeah, we should have
probably the
it up by
first day of the
next
show.
the next episode. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
should get that to you guys next week.
Yeah, by next week we should have the letterbox open. Okay, very cool, Blake. Anything else that you want to talk about that you've been watching, or
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So, Children of Heaven, highly recommend that one. And then another film that I watched recently that really really blew my mind and I had a really strong reaction with is Tsai Ming Liang's most recent film, Stray Dogs, from 2013. And for those who don't know who Tsai Ming Liang is, he's this Taiwanese new wave director, alongside with like Edward Yang, Ho Shu Shen. Those are like the three big names in the Taiwanese movement. But so Tsai Ming Liang mostly deals with slow cinema, so very long takes, stationary camera. A lot of his films deal with sort of a lack of dialogue and not so much with continuity editing that we're used to over here. But anyway, so going on to the film, it's essentially about a family on the fringes, a father, his two children, and this sort of mysterious kind of lady who works in a supermarket who becomes involved with the family. But anyway, so it's a really good look at loneliness and people living on the fringe. The family, they'll like take refuge in these sort of broken down, dilapidated, abandoned buildings. The two children uh, get food through free samples at the supermarket. The father, he holds a sign on the highway and is one of those sign holders. So you kind of
okay,
see this sort of lifestyle of people living on the fringes of Taipei, and the main actor Li Kang-shang, who Liang will use in all of his films. I legit think he's in all of his films. His performance in Stray Dogs is really, really noteworthy, and I would even compare it to Maria Falconetti's performance in Passion of Joan of Arc. There's just a lot of visceral facial reactions, a lot of great nonverbal communication going on, and his face is really selling the performance. And there's just some really beautiful segments and scenes in that film. So
awesome. Yeah, I haven't really. Um, I've only seen. You said you compared him to like Edward Yang. I think I've only seen like one or two Edward Yang
yeah, so
movies, I
Edward
believe.
Gang for sure is the most like notable and the one that the West kind of connects with the
Hmm.
most. Um,
Right.
but it's the Hoshu Shen and Simon Ling are more like obscure and they're more slow cinema and they kind of do things a little differently. But if you
Okay.
have the patience for it, it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. Did you rent this one as well?
Yes, yes, this one is also available to rent on Amazon Prime. Same thing as Children Having like $3 or $4. So yeah,
Very cool.
but if you're looking for something, if you have looking for one of his films that you want to stream for free, they do have a couple of his other films. Vive l'Amour is on Prime as well, and that's a free streaming one. I believe the Criterion Channel still has I Don't Want to Sleep Alone, which is one of his other films. So there are films out there that are free streaming, but the one for Stray Dogs, you have to rent that one.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I haven't heard of either film, so I'm gonna make sure to check those out.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
totally, man, you totally should.
yeah, I'm gonna
But
check both
going
those
on to
out.
you now, what have
Yes,
you been watching lately?
so I've been kind of catching up with all of these, movies of like kind of, I was kind of looking at people's list of the top 10 movies of the last decade since we're entering a new decade of film, hopefully.
Yeah,
And
right.
and so I was looking at all these lists and trying to break down these films, and of course, we've seen all these films and some of our favorites. So I've been trying to rewatch as many of these like classic modern films, as I could. I was rewatching, we had talked about earlier before the show. I just rewatched Nightcrawler last night, which was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was rewatching Drive, and I rewatched There Will Be Blood, and I was rewatching Mad Max. Just all these like really good, intense films made by filmmakers who have either been around for a while or new filmmakers. It's like this new. You feel like a new kind of breath of fresh air when we got some of these movies in the early part of the decade, and now to see those filmmakers where they're at now is kind of interesting. But the film that I've kind of been rewatching the most is Fincher's Social Network. Uh, when they put it on Netflix, I watched it right away, and it was one of those films for me that's just like so perfect in every way. The script, Sorkin's script, with like Eisenberg's acting and Fincher's directing, is just all like just like a beautiful mix of everything, and it all kind of works together so well in that film. And the score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is so well done. It's one of those films where I was like rewatching and I'm like, wow, this film I'm not never bored with. And by the way, one of the most satisfying things about that film, I think, is maybe the way Andrew Garfield says "fuck you" flip flops in that
Yeah,
scene where he's losing his shit.
a pair of fuck you flip flops to to JT's character.
Yeah, to JT's character,
Yeah,
Sean Parker.
I remember that quote, and it's just the way he delivers it is just so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So it's one of those weird things after seeing the film like half dozen times now. It's one of those things where I pick up on it where it's like, oh yes, that's such a funny way the line was delivered. Now I don't know if that was something that was intentional, but it's definitely something that I always find is like pretty funny in the film where Fincher's notorious for doing over 100 something takes for some scenes. So I wonder which one that was at, and if that was
Yeah, no, and
that was on purpose or not.
yeah, and that scene definitely feels like a happy accident. I couldn't imagine having his tone and that delivery be like completely deliberate.
Right.
Because it's such an intense situation. That scene is a very intense situation, and like why he's there is very intense. Like the reason why he's there, and so the way it's delivered, yeah, it's very funny, and I'm sure it was one of those happy accident moments for sure on set.
Yeah, so I've been kind of rewatching those, newer films, and I've been trying to get into, starting to rewatch some like older like Koreeda films and some Kurosawa and stuff that I just like need to have time for. I've been
Yeah,
watching a lot of TV as well. The new season of Ozarks that came out, which I really enjoy. Um, but yeah, pretty much just kind of rewatching things. It's always like this constant struggle. I feel like where it's okay. I start looking at my watch list versus movies that I love, and always picking the movies that I've seen and I love. Versus like
it's a comfort thing, man. It's for sure it's a
taking that
comfort
risk,
thing.
right? Taking that risk and being like, should I watch this?
Yeah,
Even though it's not has nothing to do with whether you think the movie's gonna be good or bad or not, or whether you want to spend the time because you're easily watch a 3.5 hour movie that you enjoy already. So
yeah, it's the unknown. It's kind of putting
I've been
yourself. You have
fighting
to
that.
be,
I've been
yeah, you have to
fighting.
be in the right headspace to want to experience something new, and I totally get that. I'm the same way.
Right. I've been fighting that, I would say, over this quarantine about fighting about what to watch. But no, I think I've been better. I think I'm getting better at it. I'm trying to like just watch new things and check out the new Netflix film. I think it's called what is it called? Tiger Lily or Tiger?
Oh, the documentary series Tiger King.
Not
The,
no, not
the
Tiger,
oh
not
no,
Tiger.
well, like I was like, wait, there's too many Tiger things out right now. What's going on?
I know Tiger. This is really bad. This is really bad podcasting right now. I gotta find out what this name of this movie is though. Tiger. I think it's called like it's a new Asian. It's by an Asian director.
Let's see. Because now I'm trying to look it up on my
Tiger
end.
Tail. Tiger Tail.
Okay.
That's the new movie. So it's Tiger Tail. It's a new Netflix film from I can't think of the director's name. Alan Yang. It's his feature film, I think, right? First feature debut, and there's Tsai Ma in it, who's also in the other Netflix like show, I think, called Assassins or something like that. I believe. Anyways, that was just other things I've been trying to check out, like new stuff I've been trying to watch. Okay, and now we would like to welcome on our first guest of the podcast, Mr. Logan Crow, who is the executive director and founder of the Frida Cinema. Welcome, Logan. We appreciate having you on for the first episode, and you're kind of you are leader at the Frida, so we want people who don't know about you to kind of maybe talk about what's going on at the Frida during quarantine, what you've been up to, and just give people a little bit of update about what's going on at the Frida since we're not open.
Right on, man. I appreciate that, and congrats on your first episode. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely,
yeah, where do you want me to start?
yeah. Maybe talk a little bit about like what's kind of your mindset right now with the Frida. What's the plan for the future? And how's this? We've been doing these streamings for the a good part of like about a month or so now, I would say, and maybe talk a little bit about how those are going for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're very much a grassroots type organization. We're a nonprofit. We're sort of self-run in the sense that it's a small team. We program internally. We curate the films we play, and a lot of that work comes from partnerships in the community. And so, I think because of that, this period has been obviously extremely difficult, and it's scary, obviously, because we care about the place that we founded and that we work hard at. But it allowed for a lot of the same sort of creativity and think on our feet perspective, I guess, that founded the place. I mean, the whole thing is it's a very unlikely type of venue. Any sort of independently run business in a world of corporations, there's a certain level of innovation and think on your feetness to it and adaptation. And so it's a scary time, I think, obviously, and I think the hardest part for me is the continued sort of unclear future in terms of when do we reopen, how do we reopen. The biggest one for me personally is when do I feel it's okay to reopen? So, if the powers that be were to say tomorrow, for whatever reason, all things being what they are, hey, you guys can go ahead and reopen. I'm not going to. I want to see a certain list of things be true and know that my audience and my volunteers and my staff are not going to endanger themselves by coming to work before I make that step. And so that part of it, that's sort of like, what is the future reopening scenario going to look and feel like? It's frustrating to not be able to really start to plan that. But beyond that, we're just all working on the adaptation in the interim and what we're doing now. And it's been a really interesting time of creativity, of creative people getting together and brainstorming and implementing new ideas and adopting new ideas and encouraging folks like you who've had a concept. Yeah, let's support that concept. Let's start a podcast. We had been long talking about some sort of a podcast / video presence. In the last month, we've done 4 live streaming events. We've got 2 coming up. It's allowed creative people, I guess, to keep their creative juices flowing. And as I talk to more and more artists and arts organizations, everyone's keeping connected on Zoom nowadays. That seems to be something that a lot of folks are sharing. Like, yeah, it's scary and we're all struggling, but we adopted this during this time, or we're looking into this, or we're finally doing this. And that part of it's been really
That's exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's very exciting. Blake and I had talked about, during this quarantine, I think we're going to be getting a lot of great and fresh ideas coming from artists and filmmakers who are known and not known, So I think, this time is like you said, it's very frustrating. We don't know really what's going to be happening in the coming days or even weeks or months. But the creative juices, I feel like are really flowing, especially at the Frida. Who knows if we would have had these opportunities to start the podcast or do some of these other blog opportunities that we've been pushing out there in the coming days. But yeah, I think that this time has been very good for like all the creative juices and keeps everyone fresh, keeps everyone's like mind. I think even though times are tough, it keeps people's minds, having to create new things, which is great for artists and, filmmakers and people everywhere to kind of come and deal with the situation, because that's what artists are. They kind of deal with these tough situations in a certain special way, which I think is really cool. And now that the Frida is we're kind of doing more of that now, I think that'll be something that we can hopefully do once we're reopened again in the coming months.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's something that we've all discussed as a staff, has been like, look, as far as the streaming, we'll talk about in a second, but as far as the things that we have more control over, like these podcasts and these video shows, no, we do not want to stop. Like it's, and again, it's something we've wanted to do. I think that the day-to-day and the small team and just
Right.
continuing to it has made it hard to find the time, the resources, the energy sometimes to really see them through. And it's been great to see them through. And part of what I've been focusing on is how do I make all these things sustainable? How do I create the machinery of it so that when we do reopen, everything's already implemented. It's just easy to replicate and pick up and do a show and launch the show. And I've got Martin, who's on staff. One of the projects he's working on right now is really looking at best practices for uploading podcasts, and where do we want to start our channel. And I've been focusing on the YouTube bit with the YouTube channel, and the streaming part. That's a completely new and incredible platform, and it sprang up. I mean, it is a COVID-19 created thing.
Yes.
Have movies been streaming? Yes, absolutely. Streaming in and of itself isn't new, but this idea of independent distributors like Kino Lorber and Magnolia and Good Deed and so many of them taking the time and the effort and the investment to create a method that they can release a film via streaming in partnership with the art houses they work with, so that the art house can direct people to a special link where if they watch the film and rent it, half of that money goes to that art house, is completely new. So,
Right.
You go to our website right now, you might see a link, for example, for Fantastic Fungi. If you click on that link, it's our logo on there. It's the distributor's link, but it's our logo. And there's language, I'm sure in there, your proceeds support the Frida Cinema. You rent it there, and that money goes half to the distributor and half to the Frida. And there'll be a link on another theater site and another theater site. The distributors are creating hundreds of links for these hundreds of theaters, or hundreds is probably an overstatement, but dozens, let's say. Where they could have easily gone to Amazon or Hulu and struck a deal and pushed their film out that way, like the major studios are doing, and they've taken this route, and I think it's extraordinary. And we've talked about it, like if they decide they want to continue making this option possible, I will embrace it, because we have
Absolutely.
We have two screens. We can't play everything we want, and if we've got a film, and we usually program about a month out, sometimes even a month and a half out, and so there might be a month, and it happens all the time at the Frida, where a distributor has suddenly picked up a film, and because of the nature of how they have to distribute it, it's coming out in 2 weeks, and can we play it? And sometimes we're like, look, this looks great, but we don't have room. Like, we can play it maybe in a month and a half, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But to be able to say, we have no room for it, would you be okay with that being part of our streaming platform?
Yeah, I think it's something that's really expanded the Frida, in this time, like making us something bigger than just two screens.
Definitely. We had someone, actually just yesterday, I was talking to a follower who watched one of our films, Extraordinary, and we loved it, and we were going back and forth, and then in the last email they said, well, thanks for doing what you're doing. It was great to be able to support you from Texas. And I'm like, are you guys from Texas? They're like, yeah, we followed you on Twitter, and we ended up on your website for a while now, and this is the first time we've been able to literally watch a film with you and support you.
That's
awesome.
And that was amazing. And
that's
I didn't
awesome.
know that. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I know Texas has their own little art house scene. I know they got the Draft House out there and whatnot. I know Austin's a pretty bourgeoising city of talent, so that's really neat that we somehow trickled down over there and someone heard about us. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, and that outreach, if it does, it allows for, it's good for us, and it's good for the distributor. I mean, that film has reached someone through our site, so that's great for us. But arguably, they may not have heard of that film or had the opportunity to see that film if they weren't on our site.
Right.
Let's say if
have
they're
you
far
talked
out
to
of
distributors?
Hopefully, if they're in Austin, they'll know all about it. Because
Yeah.
does an amazing job.
Oh yeah.
For whatever reason, they hadn't, and so, it really has expanded, like you said, the how we can connect to people, and and really how we can share independent cinema. It would be awesome to I mean, let's say that, and we're big on genre cinema too. So we haven't really seen, like right now we have Porno, which is produced by Fangoria. It's a lot of fun for horror lovers. I think it's maybe our first like full-on horror film that has come out in this platform, and so that's made our horror audience really happy to be able to have a horror pick. But there's a lot of independent horror distributors out there who may see
Right.
the benefit of partnering with an art house like us and saying,
Have you been talking to a lot of them?
Well, not everyone's adopted the platform. I think that there are some, everyone that's every independent distributor that's, pushing their films and their new platform to the art house convergence, which we're a part of, we're working with and we've talked to. Not every independent distributor, not every filmmaker has set this up yet. It takes time. Most of them are partnering with Vimeo in some capacity or another, or VHX, which is by Vimeo. It seems to be the path of least resistance, and it works out great. And the cool thing is, because it's on Vimeo, people can rent it and then watch it on their TV, which is awesome.
So do you think this is something that a lot of art houses will be adapting once things get better, or do you think this is something that's just going to be relevant for now?
It remains to be seen. Like, I'm reading every email, and I'm trying to get I think there's a little bit of concern, which I totally understand, which is, God forbid, this become the new norm. But what I say to that is, I don't think that it's a valid concern, absolutely, but I don't see that happening, because art houses already, before COVID-19, were, I guess a defiance to what was being considered the new norm. Like, we already have streaming. We already have the ability to watch any film, any classic film, let's say repertory film you want, at home. And, and I've had that conversation a million times, why is somebody going to watch Showgirls at your theater when they can just rent Showgirls on Amazon? And my answer would be, I hear your question. My only answer is, ask the 210 people who came to see Showgirls 2 months ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. You can never repeat that experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
and you always got
a little bit of tongue in cheek to that answer, but no, if there was a way that they could ask those 210 people, I'd want them to, because those are the answers that answer that question,
Yeah,
which is
definitely
the communal experience. I wanted to hear people shouting out the lines I love. I adore this movie, and there's nothing like seeing it on the big screen. And it's not even cult. Like, let's say Clockwork Orange, let's say The Shining. Movies that maybe you don't. I mean, they're cult films, but as well as classics, but they're not films that you're shouting out lines to like Showgirls are. They're not.
You're not shouting out lines to Clockwork Orange.
God no, God forbid. But they there is something that I don't have to say. I mean, there's something about seeing films on the big screen. I think every film deserves to be seen on the big screen. I think when a filmmaker sets out to make a movie, maybe monetarily in this modern age, they see a future where it's streaming and does well. But of course, what you're envisioning is the moment you get to sit in a chair with an audience and see your film towering overhead. I mean, that's
exactly. I'll never forget when I saw Mandy at the Frida, and I saw it. It was the second time I'd seen it, and I remember telling people about it, and they were like, "Oh, I'll wait till I'll wait till it gets to this. I'll wait." And then I remember texting people 15 minutes into the movie, and I never bring out my phone. And I remember texting people saying, "I'm at a cinema in downtown Santa Ana that I've never heard of. It's completely full. You should definitely see this movie in theaters." The next day they came to the Frida, saw the film. So it's one of those things where it's like you really we try hard to get those people.
That was the last time you pulled your phone out, right, at the Frida.
Last time I pulled my phone out at the Frida. That, and then maybe during Colorado Space. I'm not too sure.
Oh, fair enough.
We all get one.
Nicolas Cage brings it out of you.
I guess so.
The Cage effect. So Mandy was your first time at the Frida?
I think Blue Velvet was my first time.
Oh, two great movies. I love it.
And then Mandy was my second time.
So Mandy, was a juggernaut for us. I don't know if you know this, but it's still.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about how we got that.
Well, that's what's crazy. So, two movies that I think of. Mandy obviously did fare well better. I mean, Turbo Kid did well for us, but Turbo Kid and Mandy were two films that sort of slipped into my radar really early on, and that I followed, and that I really, really wanted badly to open. And both of them had this very similar thing happen where finally, somewhere along the way, I read that they got picked up by a distributor. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like really excited. I tracked down and chased down the exhibitor. We really, really want to open this film because I'm thinking everyone and their mother is going to want to play this. And it's going to be a fight when it finally starts to come to theaters. Because what happens, unfortunately, is, we're in proximity to a couple of, they're not independent theaters, but they're parts of chains, but they play mainstream independent cinema. Mm-hmm. And they, I think, from what I've come to understand, really stress and push proximity restrictions. We don't care who's playing a film. Like we have we have a different audience. But what I'll hear back sometimes is, I really wish I can give this to you, but would be really unhappy with us and told us they don't want us to. So I'm like, I'm ready to stress that these two movies have to open up the Frida. So Turbo Kid starts coming closer and closer, and I'm like, this is what I want to do, and I want to do a thing where we're going to work with a local bike organization, Bicycle Tree, and we're going to have bike valets, and if you show your bike valet receipt, we're going to give you a free popcorn. Like, we did this whole thing for it.
Yeah,
it was awesome. A great event. Turbo Kid was awesome. No one else was playing it, and I was stunned. And I'm like, and people loved it. I mean, they were just loving the film, and it just wasn't playing anywhere, and it worked out for us. But I was, at the same time that I was really happy for its success at the theater, I was really surprised that it didn't get a wider audience. That was doubly so for Mandy. When Mandy finally started rolling around, I was finding out we were the only ones really showing it. And if memory serves, there was one theater in LA.
I saw it for the first time at the Lamel in Santa Monica, and they had one showing at 5:30. I did not get in, and then I had to come. We waited till the showing got out. We waited outside of the theater until the showing got out. They let us back in at 7:30, I think, around 8:00 for the second showing, and that's the first time So that was the only two places I knew that it was playing.
And we sold out every show that weekend. We added a full week's run. We sold out, I think, 2 of the midweek shows and had very close to sellout shows the other days of the week. Then we added week 2. Then we added week 3. There's a handful of films, I think I can count on one hand, that we've had 3-week runs for. We usually keep a film, if not for a 2-3 day run, maybe a week, if it's like a film that warrants that, or the distributor really wants that, and we see that there'd be mutual benefit for that. And then 2 weeks, if it's if it does really well, we'll give people another week, and sometimes limited showings for that second week if we've already programmed something in. Sometimes far ahead, we'll look at something and we'll say this is probably going to be a 2-week run, and we'll leave that second week at least one of our theaters open for it. In Mandy's case, we had no idea we would hold on to it 3 weeks, and so weeks 2 and week 3 were just 10 p.m. showings every day, and every one of them was a hit. And I mean, people were coming in from everywhere: Los Angeles, Riverside, San Diego, talking to people, and it blew up our following. It blew up sort of our connectivity to a lot of folks. We were writing, with Trevor, our programmer, is big on Twitter, and so he was like chatting with the screenwriter, who was just over the moon about how well we were doing with it, and it's to date our biggest outside of Rocky Horror Picture Show, our biggest box office earner, and it was just one of those movies again. Oh yeah, by the way, by the second week, more and more theaters were playing it.
Right. I think I remember seeing that after the first week of release, people were opening it.
Yeah, so we're starting to see it everywhere, and good. And I was happy. I mean, look, it's at the end of the day, like it's we want these filmmakers and these films that to have success. That's and so it's exciting to see it get picked up more and more, and then ultimately on Shudder, that I felt gave it a nice spotlight, as one of its titles. But Mandy is definitely one of those films that
it's one of those Frida films, I would say, like
and that warrants the big screen treatment. I mean,
exactly. Did we show Beyond the Black Rainbow?
Well, I have not. I tried starting it, but I tried starting it one night, like really late, and I was doing the mistake of trying to work while I watched it, and then I'm like, no,
Right.
this is not one to watch it. So I have not gone back to restart it.
Have we programmed
gorgeous.
it?
Yeah. I know we did. I know we put
played
it the
it
day before. Yeah, Mandy. Like it was like the day before, or like a couple of days before Mandy was released.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
We brought it back to promote Mandy.
Yeah.
It's like tie into Mandy and promote it.
Mandy, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Hopefully Panos
and Mandy's one of
makes
those
another.
films too. Like Trevor and I have talked about, what are we going to program when we reopen? And one of the things we're talking about is it would be great to reopen with, with that same conversation in mind, a series of films that really are a testament to the value of seeing films on the big screen. So everything
Absolutely.
from films like Mandy and 2001 Blade Runner, maybe that are visually, Tree of Life, that are visually resplendent and just don't hold a candle to the small screen experience, all the way to cult classics that are, Rocky Horror, Showgirls that are, best enjoyed in community as opposed to at home. Although I'm sorry, I could see Showgirls any day of the week. I don't know what it is about that movie, but I think it's one
awesome.
of the most entertaining. Like, I'll never put my finger on what it is about Showgirls.
I saw it in film school for the first time.
In film school?
I saw it in film school. My editing teacher he was an experimental filmmaker turned professor, which is a weird thing. But he showed us Showgirls, and I remember watching this movie. And I'm like, I don't know why I love this movie so much, but I do. It's weirdly odd.
It's beyond reasoning.
You want to have a ridiculous nightmare, but you hire like brilliant set decorators and costumers and lighting designers to stage your nightmare. The movie is so gorgeous to look at. I mean, you can't argue that. It is glossy. It is colorful. Everything is so opulent, and then it's Showgirls.
Showgirls, you're right.
It really needs to be said about it. It's Showgirls.
The poster we have at the Frida is awesome.
It's just so Showgirls, but that's an example of a movie that, and I'm sure there are fans out there, who could just throw it on and enjoy it at home. But watching it in an audience, same with Rocky Horror. You can watch Rocky Horror at home. It's a fun movie. It's got fun music. But when you're in audience with it, it's just a whole different experience. It's community. Any horror movie, a really good horror movie, there's a reason horror movies do so well opening weekend, and it's because people know there's nothing like being surrounded by people who are screaming their heads off and laughing nervously and all of it, and screaming at characters for doing dumb things, and that shared what am I looking for? Empathetic. I don't know what the word is, but that.
Yeah, it's a weird, you're sharing all those emotions together.
Yeah, and
it's almost like a sense of camaraderie you have with someone you've never met or talked with before is what I feel like the film experience kind of gives you, or the theater experience gives people. It's just like we all went through all these emotions together, so we're somehow closer for doing this together. I don't know.
Absolutely, which is why I love when a movie ends and people just hang out in the lobby and they're
it's great.
And they're talking about it in new clusters. Like you see folks who, as I'll watch from behind the concessions, I love this. Groups who clearly have never met, who just sort of overhear each other, and suddenly they're all talking, and there are times where I'm like, they were waiting for an in. Like
absolutely,
they were their ears were extra stretched out for that in to be like, yeah, and suddenly they'll be friends. Even for just that moment, and I love that.
Yeah, and it's a special feeling, definitely. And I remember back in must have been October, November last year when they were doing the Santan Tango Bellatar run through at the Egyptian.
Yeah.
I was there. I went by myself, and it's a whole day thing.
Yeah.
It was like 7.5 hours, and in between intermissions, I was just kind of like same thing, pricking my ears up, waiting for someone to talk about a scene or a moment that I also really enjoyed, and that happened on a couple occasions. And I was just having these full blown conversations with these strangers, and it was really something. And
was it the little girl and the cat?
Yeah, oh God, man, that that segment is so rough, but it's
very rough,
nihilistically poetic.
I'll be honest, I've yet to see it, and you're the second person to bring up that film in 4 days. So that's definitely one that I'm considering. What's that?
It's a special one. I know Arbelos is coming out with that Blu-ray, that 4K restoration Blu-ray sometime later this fall, I believe. But I mean, I would advocate for a theater experience because that film it invades you.
Yeah, I saw the Turin Horse, and unfortunately saw it at home. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if enjoyed is the right word, but I really appreciated the experience of watching it all
Yeah,
together. But I
yeah,
remember thinking I really should have seen this in a theater. Like, I would have felt the cold, I would have felt the air
yeah.
that was around me. The music would have penetrated my soul. I mean,
There's
yeah.
something about those more atmospheric movies that definitely the theater experience and being surrounded by blackness is definitely it heightens it. It definitely heightens it. But I know, Logan, before we started recording, you talked about the quarantine. Do you mind sort of
Oh yeah.
talking about what that is and sort of getting into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, I have to say, and it's interesting. So I should say this without tooting my own horn, but yeah,
No,
I'm
toot
a
your own
pretty
horn, Logan.
philanthropic.
Go for it.
I'm a pretty philanthropic person. Like I love to lend support to artists and causes, and people who dedicate themselves to doing things that make the world a better place. And whatever that, and that is from healthcare to social to art, in whatever way. And when this hit, and I got an idea of how that was going to impact my business and impact me personally, fiscally, I was really hesitant. I talked to the board, and like we had to be fundraising like crazy, and my visceral reaction was everyone's finances are being affected. Like I agree, but like I don't feel comfortable asking folks to help the Frida because there's a communicated assumption there that I think that everyone's going to have money, and they're like, and I needed some sort of perspective and schooling back from my board. God bless them, and that's what boards are for. And they're like, you're giving folks an opportunity to support an organization they care about. If they can, they can. If they can't, they can't. You know, and but I was really hesitant to ask for support because I'm like, everyone needs to hold on to the money they have, and if they're going to give it all, they should be given to first responders. And I, there's still a part of me that that really does believe if make that a priority. Continue to give to the arts. Absolutely, we need you.
Mm-hmm.
But long story short, I was really really humbled when before I even had a chance to start to ask for support, it just started coming in. We started getting donations for support, emails. How are you guys doing? How can we help out? And it lit a fire under me, not only to really consider how, I know that the Frida has fans, and I appreciate that the Frida has fans, and we live and work for those fans and people who believe in what we do. But it really put it all in a new perspective that even at a time like this, and especially at a time like this, the Frida is a consideration for people. They don't want to lose it. They don't want it to die.
Mm-hmm.
And they are willing to put in what they can to help. So it reframed something in me, and we started to say, all right, we need to make it clear and communicate that we are concerned about our future. My biggest priority was my staff. And so at that level, I was like, yes, we need to immediately hold some sort of a fundraiser to, at the very least, keep my staff insured, number one. And number two, try to not completely furlough them, because immediately we knew that we were going to have to cut some hours and potentially cut some shifts. But, it's possible to hold people on furlough for a while and continue to insure them, which was my number one priority. Whether we cut hours or not, their insurance must remain. Like, it was very important to me. And so the first thing we did was the 10-hour streamathon.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal was to raise 1,000, which would have covered a month of insurance plus a little bit more. We raised 2,600, which was incredible, which covered 3 months insurance, which was just so mind blowing. And it was the first thing we'd ever done live stream. It was the first time we'd ever taken to YouTube. We had a $1,000 matching donor who came in halfway through the show just to, well, they were listening the whole show, but they texted me halfway through the show. They don't want to be acknowledged. God bless them. And wrote, I will match $1,000 if you can hit $1,000 during this streamathon. And so we started to make a lot of noise on the show, and I think we hit 1,000 by like 8 p.m. and people still continue to give to where we were. I think, like I said, 2,600 by the end of the show. So we were over the moon. But the quarantine is something that completely happened organically and completely outside of ourselves. We were approached. I was approached maybe 2 months ago by a young lady named Lauren Clinton, who came up and introduced herself. Hey, I'm Lauren. I love your theater, and we talked, and you know, she said she'd been coming for a while, and I was really happy to meet a new person. And then this pandemic hit, and then about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Lauren reached out and said, I know a lot of artists and friends who are really sad, and they want to come up with a way to help the Frida. We're concerned about you guys. We want to get together and put together a zine for you. And there's poets, there's screenwriters, a couple of artists. Would you be okay with us putting together like an e-zine that you can create a URL to, and then maybe if people donate $5, we send them the link. And I was like, absolutely, that sounds awesome. I love it. I thought it was a great idea. And over the last 2 weeks, we've been going back and forth as she's put the finishing touches on it. It's an incredible piece. It's 43 pages long. It's a collaboration of 15 artists, and they called it the Quarantine, which I thought was really fun. A Quarantine, a fundraising zine for the Frida. It has, like I said, poems, visual poems like meme poetry. It has a short screen sheet music. Somebody drew sheet music for a song for these times. Top 10 lists for cinema. It's even got one of our interns, Alana Gray, who's just really mega talented. She contributed. She's going to start doing these like cult cinema coloring pages for us.
Oh wow!
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so there's a
That's
pink
pretty
flamingos coloring page in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just incredible.
That's awesome.
And other interns, Conchita, Ilsa, Isa, Jordan. People really contributed to make this thing special, and so it's now available. If you go to our website, thefridacinema.org, right on the top right column, right on top, is the image for the cover of the Quarantine. If you click on that, it takes you to a link where you can donate. What's amazing is the artists, they said I asked them what, do you want to set a minimum donation? And they were all like $5. And I'm like, absolutely. $5 is great. $5 is wonderful. It is a affordable amount, hopefully, for folks. And that's great. And so, and because it's emailed, there's no cost, we're not printing or mailing anything. So it's available to anyone who donates $5 or more. And that's very clear. But where you donate, it's just an empty field where you can type in a number. And we've been so grateful that a lot of folks have gone over. We're grateful for every $5 donation, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people have gone, 10, 15, 20, 25, and it just means the world to us. And so I know that Lauren is extremely happy. We've been, it's only been on the site for 2 days, and it's done well, and we'll keep pushing it.
Absolutely.
I think that all of them, I think Lauren and Cade, who helped her out, and every artist has a lot to be proud of. It's a really impressive collection of creative works, and I'm beyond humbled by it.
Yeah, it's something that looks very cool for people who they can check it out, and on the website they can also find the replays of the streams that we've been having, correct?
Yes. So on the website right now, I've got them as memes on the right hand column. We're going to create a menu because we're adding more and more of these. So like on the website, eventually, it depends on when you're listening. There'll either be a menu item on the top that says like our shows, and you can click on that and it'll have a catalog. But right now, they're all listed on the right hand column. But no, it's just those gestures like that. There's another thing happened where, and I want to give a shout out to Adriana Means. Adriana is a fan of the Frida, and she had a lifelong dream of joining Habitat for Humanity, and was just working quite a lot and couldn't quite make it happen. But finally committed herself to joining a bit ago, and recently signed up with her husband to travel to Argentina and create a community. And so she had started a fundraising page to raise money for that trip. And then COVID-19 hit and unfortunately canceled that trip. So she decided to then steer that fundraiser in support of two of her favorite institutions in downtown Santa Ana, Alta Baja Market, our neighbors on in 4th Street Market,
Right.
and the Frida, which just
Absolutely.
was incredible. And so she asked, how would you feel about that? And my one caveat was, I love it absolutely, as long as you A, promise you're going to go to Argentina one day, and B, when you decide to, when you're ready, let us throw a fundraiser for you at the cinema. And
Absolutely.
so that's the deal. So that was another incredible gesture. And I mean, those things mean the world to us. And look, I think, the Frida Cinema for me, that was my dream. Like as a kid, I love art houses. I've always loved art house cinemas. It's my dream, and it's very much a dream come true that I saw through and worked to make happen, and was very blessed to meet a lot of incredible people along the way. But there is something to be said for, and they call it founder syndrome, I guess, in the nonprofit world, when it's your vision, and so there's sort of a humble connection to it, because it feels less of this is a nonprofit that I care about and I've gotten a job to direct it, but this is the nonprofit that came out of me. It's like my child.
Exactly.
There's something to be said about when you start to find out that it's other people's dream come true, that you open your doors and people build a family out of it, and you realize that it's like literally other people's dream come true.
Exactly. Because I think,
really humbling.
yeah, I think film is the one medium of, the one medium where people can see dreams that they want to come true actually come true. So
Sure,
I think people love supporting art house cinemas where they can see something that they really like, they really love. It's their dream to see this kind of film, or their dream to see this kind of event, whatever it may be. And I think that's why people have been so well responsive towards all this quarantine stuff that we've been doing at the Frida, because I think people are really realizing, like, hey, we can actually start stuff that we love to do, and keep the dreams of having all these great independent films coming to the Frida for 25, 30 more years,
and it's funny because that was one of the tenets that I wanted to found the cinema when we first started. Is that one of the things I said is I wanted to serve as an incubation space for dreamers. And so from the get-go, that was why it was so important that student and independent filmmakers be able to show their films there, along with, one of the things I love is when someone takes a picture of the marquee and they've got the name of their, short or independent film, and it happens to be opening the same day that we're playing, The Godfather Part 2 in another theater, and they go, "Oh my God! Look at the name of my film underneath The Godfather Part 2." I love that.
That's something to be starstruck about. That's a big deal.
I love that because because we give both films the same level of acknowledgement on our marquee. It's like these are both works of art by people who set forward to make this accomplishment, and then gathered other artists. I mean, and that's something else I love about cinema, is that it is a collaboration of artists. It's writers, it's performers, musicians, lighting technicians, costume designers, set designers,
everything.
Yeah, and
everything.
And it is the ultimate collaboration of talents, and it's an art form that I celebrate. Really, obviously, very personal to me and very important to me. So,
yeah, well, thank you for your time, Logan. We appreciate you spending a good chunk of time of your day with us, and
happy to
for cinema and for the Frida and what's going on. And sort of a close, but
go for it. We'll go for it.
So closing the segment out, Anthony and I have been kind of saying what we've been watching, or something that we'd recommend to people who are tuning into this. So if you wouldn't mind doing the same, something that I know you've been really busy, but if you've seen something either for the first time or something you've rewatched recently, or something just you would recommend to people to check out, floor is yours.
Yeah. Gosh,
before you start, Logan, I just want to let people know that Blake recommended John Dielman by Chantal Akerman. Came out in 1975, I believe, available for rent on Amazon only. And then I recommended Denis Villeneuve's. What was that, Blake?
Criterion Channel as well, if anyone has a subscription.
Criterion Channel as well. Okay, very good. And then I recommended Denis Villeneuve's 2013 Enemy, which I believe is still streaming for free on Netflix. So those are our two So those are our two recommendations about what we've been watching. But Logan, the floor is yours. Have you been watching anything?
Yeah, I'm still getting over the last few moments of Enemy.
Oh my God! Right?
No spoilers here, but what I just saw that maybe a month ago.
And he snuck that in between, like, what did he snuck that movie in between? I think it was he did that movie after Prisoners and then before Arrival, which was just insane.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I think that film was part of his 2013 where he came out with. Let's see if I can.
Yeah, I don't think I put it in context of when it came out. I just
so it came out in 2013, and he came out with Enemy in 2013 along with Prisoners, and then Sicario was 2015, Arrival was 2016, and then he did 2049 in 2017. Wow. A lot of people forget about Enemy, how we squeezed that in, but yeah.
No, I really got a lot of Enemy. I really appreciated that film. It gave me a lot to think about. Oh gosh, I've seen a lot lately. I guess honorable mentions. I saw Her Smell, which blew me away.
Yes, Elizabeth Moss's role in that is just that movie really blew me away too. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Well, and it was interesting because I read a lot of people who were like, "Well, she was great, but the movie was so." I thought the movie was fantastic. I thought she was fantastic. I thought the movie I thought that she and the film were on the same page the whole movie. Like I really dug that movie. I saw The Fits, which was gorgeous and weird and fantastic. And felt like a singular voice, which I love when I'm watching a movie, and I feel like there are elements that recall other things, but I am watching one voice right now that I'm excited to follow with and hear. Like, have you seen The Fits?
I have not.
I haven't heard of The Fits. No.
It's pretty great. I don't remember where I streamed it, but I streamed it somewhere.
I'll definitely add that to the list.
You know what? I really the film I'm going to talk about, The Platform.
The Platform, crazy.
The Platform. Did you see that?
I have seen it.
I absolutely got. I mean, it's one that when I've got a moment, I'm going to watch again. I was like, as soon as it ended, I wanted to watch it again. It's a Netflix release. Just an incredible, I guess you'd call it science fiction,
right? Maybe,
allegory, as all great science fiction is, and it's one of those movies where there's so much that's happening cleverly and subversively and politically throughout that as you're watching it, you're going, "This has been so good so far. Please stick the ending." Mm-hmm. You have created a world and a context for what you are committing that is profoundly well done. It's what I say. No one else has approached this material before. No, they have, but it's always about how do you do it and what are the symbols you use and what is the methodology. It was just so good, and it stuck the ending. It was great ending. It was a fantastic film.
Yeah, I think it won. I think it was a festival hit, from what I can remember.
Was it?
I think it won. I think it won a big award at Stitches, and I think it was around TIFF and all that stuff. But yeah, when I heard about it months prior, and then I watched it. I was like, "Oh, this movie's on Netflix," and I watched it, and it is very entertaining film. It's very entertaining, very different.
It's brutal. I'll say that.
Brutal, very brutal to watch.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie where people say, "Would you recommend it?" And it's there are the films you're like, "Yeah, absolutely," and then there's the caveat films like, "Yeah, listen, just so you know, it's kind of brutal."
You gotta have that little warning label to it. It's like, yeah, but also.
Well, it's like The Fits. The Fits is one of those where it's like, do you recommend it? It's like, I think so. Like, I loved it, but it's
uncomfortable,
kind of surreal, and but yes, by all means, watch it. But no, this one was. I just absolutely loved it. I think it was. It is the kind of movie where if there were an avenue where I could work with Netflix, and we were able to play Okja with Netflix and Mudbound with Netflix. I would love to be able to play the Platform at the theater. If
absolutely, I was thinking that while I was watching. This is a Frida. There's films I watch now after I've been at the Frida where I'm like, is this a Frida film? Because I'm always thinking in that mode, like, would would this play at the Frida? And I was watching Platform, and I was like, Platform's a Frida movie for sure. One that I think our audiences would enjoy if we ever got a chance to play it.
Yeah, and I finally saw the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, and it was so sad not to enjoy.
Oh my God,
I was so sad.
Oh.
Maybe I wasn't in the right headspace. I don't know. There were moments of charm and whimsy that I appreciated, but I just kept sitting there going like, I'm so sad not to be enjoying this because it's supposed to be one of the best.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely some good vignette sections in that film.
Yeah.
I like the scene with the audio when they're, when the curtains open up, and that scene's definitely iconic. And then he's like, "Oh, guys, like I forgot my lines." Like that whole scene and that segment's really great. But I know, like, Buñuel's already hit and miss with a lot of people, but I feel like
the scene in the restaurant with the soldier. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in my head. I was feeling that, like, but I love Belle de Jour. Like, I adore Belle de Jour.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was one of those movies that you finally catch up with, and you're like, I'm sad that I'm not totally like in the right now. But yeah.
I would recommend watching Phantom of Liberty if you haven't seen Phantom of Liberty. I feel like that's a better version of Discreet Charm. At least in my opinion, it is. It's very like kind of similarly told, as I kind of you follow these characters, and it's very vignette kind of style. But I feel like the execution of it is a lot better, and the content's a lot better. And it's one of his later films too, so it feels like a more mature version of Discreet Charm. So I would recommend checking that one out since you haven't seen Phantom of Liberty. But yeah, man, thanks for the Rex, Logan. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. And congratulations again. And any way we can support this, let me know. And
absolutely,
AJ, I look forward to if you have the time still when that day comes to seeing you at the Frida and being able to entertain people in person again. Until then, we'll keep the streaming going.
Absolutely, we appreciate everything you're doing for the Frida, not only for the Frida but for film lovers, around Orange County and around California, and now around the country. Now that we're known in Texas, I guess which is crazy to think about. So
yeah, when you put it that way, like, oh my God, yeah, that's wild.
We really appreciate all the hard work. I know Blake and I are really excited for this opportunity to start this podcast. We thank you for coming on. Hopefully we'll be hearing from you soon. We'd like to have you on every once in a while to give like an update for the Frida. We'll be putting your recommendations on our letterbox. If anyone else wants to find anything more about Logan, you can go to the Frida Cinema website or the Frida Cinema Instagram. Go donate if you can. We understand it's a difficult time right now, but if you can donate, that would be very helpful to the cinema. Hopefully we'll be open soon for you guys, but for now, we watch our streams, read our blogs, listen to the podcast, and Logan will be updating you guys hopefully very soon about what's going on at the Frida. But for now, we'd like thank you to Logan Crow for being our first guest on the Smile at the Chaos podcast presented by the Frida Cinema. So now one thing that we're going to try to do at the end of each show is Blake and I are going to recommend one film that we either like a lot, we've seen recently, some sort of reason why we've picked it, and have you guys try to watch it and then feed us some questions about the film that we'll try to answer on the next podcast. Or if you guys want to even like shoot us like a DM on the Instagram page about a question you may have, we'll be answering all those on the show. So, Blake, what is your one film that you're going to be recommending to people to watch over the next week?
So the film that I'll be recommending for our listeners to watch, since we're kind of still in quarantine, don't really know what's going on with all that, so we're still social distancing, we're still kind of stuck at home. I was thinking I should choose something along the lines of isolation, kind of like themes of isolation, domesticity, like something shot in a single location or mostly shot in a single location. So the first thing that came to mind was Chantal Akerman's Jeanne Dielman.
Yeah.
So it's like the epitome of a quarantine film, because you're just watching this single housewife do these banal errands and chores around the house, and that's essentially what our lives have become. So
exactly.
I recommend Jeanne Dielman. And so going back to you, Anthony, what would you recommend to these folks?
Yeah, real quick. What year was that Ackerman film?
1975.
And then you said people can find it most likely to rent on Amazon?
I forgot to mention that, but I know that one is for sure on the Criterion channel. So for
And
those
Criterion
who have
Channel. Okay.
Criterion channel, that's a free streaming one, and I know they offer like a 14-day free trial. But highly recommend getting that service. A lot of really great films on there. But yeah, so Gene Dillman is on Criterion channel and is also available on Amazon Prime.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So you'll be also, like I said before, you'll be able to find all of these recommendations and movie club weekly recs that you can find in our letterbox. I'm going to be recommending Denis Villeneuve's 2013 Enemy, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It's one of those films that he did within those 4 years where he kind of slipped it in there between, I believe it was between Prisoners. Yeah, so he did Prisoners, Enemy, and Sicario, and he kind of slipped Enemy in between Sicario and Prisoners. And it's a film that stars Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a guy who's watching a television show and he sees an exact look like or he's watching a movie and he sees like the exact, he sees himself in the movie as a character, and so he goes and tries to find him and hunt him down. It's this whole identity element that Villeneuve's working with in the film. It's very well shot, an awesome score, very good visual effects as Villeneuve has in every one of his films. I believe you can find it on Netflix right now to stream for free, and if not, I believe it's on Amazon Prime right now to rent for 99 cents. So the two options out there, go check those out. And those are our two movie club recs for the week. We'd like to thank everyone for coming and joining us on the first episode. If they want to find out more about you, Blake, where can they go?
Yeah, so my personal letterboxed handle for people who have letterboxed is on letting go 555. So all just one word, ONLETTINGGO 555. And then for those interested in following my Instagram handle, it's the same thing, but instead of 555, it's 666. So on letting go 666 for Instagram, on letting go 555 for letterboxed.
Got to keep it clean on Letterboxd, right?
Yep. But and for those who are listening, we know it's a difficult time through this quarantine, and those who are on unemployment who have or been lost their job or furloughed or whatever. But if you have anything to spare or to donate to the Frida Cinema, we would greatly appreciate any donations at this time. We definitely need it, and you can donate to us by going to thefridacinema.org. And if you scroll towards the bottom of the page, there should be a donation link that you can click on and donate any amount that you'd like. But only if you're willing to, only have the means to spare. But during this time, it'd be extremely helpful.
And we also have a bunch of movies streaming on the Frida website too. So there's a lot of cool movies that you guys can go ahead and check out there for a good price. So any way you guys want to support the Frida, we'd greatly appreciate it. But for now, we thank you guys for joining us, and we will catch you guys next week.